tell as a commissioner of police, tell a politician, back off. You have no knowledge of the law. You have no knowledge of law enforcement. You cannot force my officers to do the wrong thing.
But that is somebody's son. That is somebody's child. That is part of a family. And I think that is the part that they are missing out.
Because E and F are apt to be used oppressively.
It's like because we don't see disabled people as sexual beings, which is ridiculous.
You mean they don't want to listen to your version of science? They have their own science. You have your science.
What we need to do is teach people to think and not what to think.
Today, it's too bad that everybody do what they want.
If I could forgive Bernard Ford, then I could forgive Bob Morris too. And today, on this day, I no more have anything in my heart for what he did.
The education system has to be very fluid and dynamic because we're living in very different and changing times.
Treating all your citizens equally, all your citizens fairly, recognizing each group, not discriminating against one or the other.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just keep quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this. So I'm not sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. Let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
Viewers and listeners, welcome to the first segment of the program. Now, news a couple of weeks ago that the talented soca artist Muddy from the great parish of St. David made it to the Rolling Stones list of 100 best artists globally is a big deal and a testament to the superb quality of locally made soca by way of expert productions from the sister Isle of Carriacou. Now, to understand why Muddy's recognition is such a big deal, we must first appreciate the significance of this magazine in the first place. Now, for almost 60 years, Rolling Stone magazine has dominated music journalism globally. Note I said globally, and hasn't shied away from naming the good and the bad in American and global music. Now, appearing on Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Artists list means that an artist is recognized by his peers and critics for significant impact, originality, and lasting legacy in popular music that goes beyond just sales to consider the influence on culture, depth of catalog, and ability to remake the world with their music. And of course, it also signifies major cultural relevance and a place in the pantheon of influential musicians at any given point in history. Now, for decades, the magazine's focus on the Global South has always been to feature reggae extensively through the greatest albums of artists such as Bob Marley, Toots and the Maytals, Jimmy Cliff, the late great Jimmy Cliff, Sean Paul, Cuffie, Peter Tosh and Junior Murphy and so on. But this is the first time that in the history of the magazine that soca, and in particular Grenadian soca, has been given the prominence of other global South expressions. And I'm happy now to be joined by Alex Muddy Cuffie. Muddy, congratulations,
Yes.
my brother, and welcome to the Bubb Report.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here, man. That was a super intro, by the way.
Yeah, much appreciated. Well, one of the reasons I have you here, I tell people I have a very strong bias from St. David's. I'm from Pomrose.
Yeah.
Carrie
Right
was
up
a little girl, right up in the mountain. Oh, we lost you there. I think we lost you there. Oh, you're back now. You're back now. Yeah, I'm from right up in the mountain, up in the bush behind God back, as they say in Pomrose. But you also from St. David's, and I tell people, I tell my friends from St. John's, you all cannot say that Guelph is the Republic now. We can call St. David's the Republic too. Okay?
Yeah.
So Muddy, before we get into this, tell us, your roots in who is Muddy, where is Muddy from, what influenced Muddy, your growing up days and so on. Tell us about that.
Muddy away from music and producing. I would say, first of all, there's no Muddy away from music and producing.
Okay.
There's Alex away from that.
Right.
And away from that, I'm just a cool friend. I'm the handyman around the place. I do a lot of building, like joinery work, also do construction as well. So it's like dabbling and creating with my hands as well as
Yeah. So Muddy, of course, as I said, you're from St. David's. I think there is something very special about St. David's. I believe you're from Malty or Content. Is that the area you're from? You're from Malty. Okay, so I was close. So you know Teacher Lloydie then?
Yeah, definitely.
That's the boss.
Teacher Lloydie been to the studio a lot of times.
Yeah, man, that's the boss. He taught me in Pomrose School, know. But tell us about the people that inspired you to get involved in the art form, to get involved in music. Now, I know, for example, in Pomrose School, for many years, there was a music program where, a lot of young Calypsonians would participate in the Calypso competition there. I'm not sure if you did that, but tell us about the people who really inspired you to get involved in the music.
Getting involved with the music had a lot to do with my upbringing in Malta itself, because we just hanging out with my friends, we always like to dabble and try to create little ideas and music. But the love for music itself and creating my song came in high school. I probably was like about 17 years, and I started going to the studio. But soca music though, because I actually started doing the rap music and the dancehall and the reggae. Being in studio with Bill the Vibes, the late Bill the Vibes, God rest his soul. And Likanati came one day, and he was like, because Likanati is my first cousin. He came and he was like, if you're doing reggae music and dancing so well, you should try soca, So I would say Likanati is the one that pushed me to go into that soca arena. Just all practically.
So you related to him by Natty Nuclear Dread as well?
No, by Sister Lee.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is music all around. Absolutely. So of course, this year was a very big year for you. Did you first of all anticipate how big things were going to blow up for you this year?
I did not. I'm not sure if any artist releases a song and expects it to do what it does, but I really did not. I thought Payroll was just gonna be another awesome song on the catalog, and it's gonna do what the rest done. But this far, it has surpassed every single thing on the catalog, and it's doing so much for me. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the idea behind that song, because I will send Kerry a voice note and she will send that to you. But a brother did a voice note to William Joseph, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me calling his name. I'm not sure if you heard that voice note, but he did a voice note that captures, I think, the essence of this song with the "When Stars Align," right? That greatness in space. I mean, that is such a powerful line. That alone is such a powerful line. And I'm sure you've heard this.
Yeah.
But when you were thinking about that song and when you brought that idea to the producers, what was on your mind?
First of all, big up to the producers, big up to Export Productions.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing brothers. And they super good at what they do. They send the rhythm to me, and the when stars align, we all know about the alignment and the idea of the song.
Yeah.
You know, perfect alignment. When it's your time, it's your time. And the greatness outshines all hatred in space and time.
Space and time, yeah.
No matter, once you put the work in, once you show that greatness, once you show that you want this, and you keep putting that hard work in, everything that you do, your greatness is gonna shine. Your greatness is gonna shine throughout every bad thing that is said about you, every negativity, everything, every dark shadow that is upon you. Your greatness will overpower everything, and that was just the song, you know. And to pair it with a song that starts so deep and mellow, to just come in, me back pattern already. It's just a different feeling. Yeah, man.
Yeah, because you know, again, that pairing and the way that you connected to Jab, I mean, that just took it to another level.
Yeah.
You know, and then the backpack, you know, the symbolism on the backpack and so on, really, really good. Muddy, what goes into your writing? What goes into how you think about how you compose your music?
For me, I am not one to sit and get an idea and put pen to paper. What I do is a producer would send a beat to me, and I would listen to it for a couple of hours and see what comes to mind, because I always try to let the rhythms tell me what to sing. Because for me, it's way more difficult trying to take this idea and fit it onto a rhythm. Rather than get a rhythm, and that rhythm tells you all the melody, the melodic structure of the rhythm, and everything tells you how to harmonize and where to do with your lines and where to do with your melodies. And that's how I take this thing.
And I want to take you back to Soca Monarch Night.
Yeah.
What went into that Let me tell you, that presentation was boss. that was a boss presentation. What went
I take full
into?
pride in that.
Yeah. And I suspect a lot went into that. So if you can just tell us what went into that.
Well, the idea of the presentation was to do what we have not seen in Soca Monarch. You know, we wanted to have interchanging props. We didn't want to just come up with one set of props and just put it on the stage and we perform and we go off, you know.
Right.
And that song basically it created itself. It's like a picture. You just had to do what the song says. So we started with them stars aligning in the front there, you know, and that was super. Big up my team for that. Trust me. Big up Orlando, big up Roxy, the man with the ideas, you know. And then we came out with the jab sport as the jab pack, the backpack. We also had the Juve. When I say load me up with it, that was there as well. And we also had the jab bank to put the jabs up on a payroll. And that, trust me, Soca Monarch, I take full pride in this scrum. This scrum is amazing. It feels amazing, trust me.
Because you put in a lot of work into that presentation. I mean, just the delivery, everything about it was so positive and so inspirational. You know. So how did you hear about the Rolling Stone article? Who told you about it?
I actually had just flown back from Toronto to Trinidad to do a press run. And I was there in the Airbnb and I was just scrolling. And then I got a notification from, I think it was the Soca Source. And I saw it and I was like, what is this? I don't know what's this, you know. So I looked at it, I sent it to a couple of people, and then I would go to the comments. I was like, oh my, that's a big thing. That is a big deal. So then I accepted the collaboration on Instagram. And then I started posting it, and I just see it started going crazy, man. That's what I was doing. That was my moment of the Rolling Stones. First, it was, nah, this can't be real. And then it was like, let me just soak this in. I still don't know what to feel, but I'm soaking it in.
Yeah, but tell us, I mean, as I said in the intro and as I said last week on the program, that is a big deal. What I want to say, I say that, but we have such a wealth of talent, So, what do you think this accolade will do for Grenada and representation of Grenada internationally and the music and so on?
I would say from here on forward, we have to see Grenada as not just a small island because we have big talent here. A lot of talent that's being pushed aside, or I wouldn't say pushed aside, but overlooked because for years I felt like I was overlooked. That's what inspired a line like greatness outshines all hatred in space and time. And we have to look at it at that way, and we have to push the artists to just motivate them, just motivate them to do well, and don't have them in the mentality of, oh, Grenada likes stupidness, so sing stupidness, because we do have that mentality sometimes,
We do,
and
yes.
as we see, great music could carry you where you need to go. You don't have to follow the hype. You don't have to follow the trend. You could create from a real place, from an authentic place, and get what you want. So just be real and do your thing. Create how you create.
Yeah. And you said you've been busy, I suspect you probably went to the Uber Soca cruise. I'm not too sure, but what has it been like for you following the winning Soca Monarch this year? I suspect you've been very busy. And what can we expect from you next year?
I have been pretty busy, and I must pay respects to not just the Soca Monarch, but I did win the People's Choice Award as well.
The People's
And
Choice Award, that's right.
That to me, winning a competition is cool because we have to work hard for that. But winning a People's Choice Award is the people telling you that you did what you had to do. So yeah.
Yeah, and next year, what if you? I'm sure you maybe don't want to let everything out of the bag yet, but I'm sure that Trinidad Carnival is coming up, of course.
Yeah.
But what can Grenadians expect from Muddy next year? I suspect the same high quality.
More, even higher. Every year, if you are a fan of Muddy and you've been watching me over the years, every year the quality keep going up. Because what I do, I tend to go back and watch myself and see where I did wrong and see what I could do better. So just expect more from Muddy for the upcoming year. Expect international collaborations and expect, not just international trips, but super international trips where in places where you wouldn't expect me. Yeah.
And representing Grenada so honorably.
Flying that flag. Flying that flag high. Yeah, man.
Yeah. And St. David's too.
Yeah.
All right, Muddy. Any final comments from you, brother, before we go to the next segment?
I just want to say to the people that support the music over the years, to the people that still supporting, sharing the music, I love you. Keep doing it. Dirty Life to the world. We're gonna keep giving you amazing, authentic music. And yeah, we about to make Grenada super proud of a little island boy that's ready for the world with this musical talent that we have. What do you mean?
Muddy, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
It's a pleasure.
All right. And I'll be getting my backpack just now. All right.
Big up. What do you mean?
All right, brother. All right. Okay. Viewers and listeners, that was their Alex Muddy Cuffie, who made history for himself, for St. David's, and of course for Grenada, with a backpack on a payroll there being featured in this year's Rolling Stone magazine. Such a significant and historic accomplishment for the music, for the art form, for the industry, for Grenada, for St. David's, for the producers, for the ones who produce this music, for Expert Productions in Carriacou, and of course Bill Devise, may he rest in peace, and all of the other talented young people in Grenada who are doing amazing work. We tend to sometimes have negative things to say about young people, but when young people shine in the way that Muddy shines, we have to really elevate and celebrate that amazing work that they do. So what we want to do now, folks, is to take a break and come back for the panel segment of the week. Please stand by for that. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Please remember to like and share this week's live stream. And of course, if you're joining us over on YouTube, please remember to hit that subscribe button so that you can be updated on notifications coming from the Bubb Report. Now, for the second segment of the program, we turn our attention to happenings in our backyard, as it were, with respect to the U.S. war of aggression against Venezuela and the role that Trinidad and Tobago continues to play in facilitating this major war of aggression. Now, while Grenada's Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell remains mum on the question of granting permission to the United States to install a radar at the Maurice Bishop International Airport, the island of Tobago is now playing host to another U.S. military installation. Now, U.S. Marines quietly installed a new radar system at the A&R Robinson International Airport on the island of Tobago after its Prime Minister reversed earlier denials about any U.S. troops remaining in the country. Now, officials in Trinidad and Tobago framed the project as a counter-narcotics and airport upgrade effort, notwithstanding that the airport was upgraded and recently reopened to the public. That's the new terminal, at least. But the radar's likely capabilities and location just off Venezuela give it clear implications for wider regional air and maritime surveillance. Now, on the 20th of November 2025, Trinidad and Tobago's Kamala Persad Bissessar confirmed that the United States Marines were in Tobago installing the new radar system at the A&R Robinson International Airport, after previously denying that any U.S. troops were on the island, as reported by the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian. Now, the government presents the project as an upgrade of airport infrastructure and national surveillance capabilities against narcotics traffickers operating in the waters around the Twin Island state. Now, at the same time, open source imagery and flight tracking strongly suggested that the radar involved is the U.S. Marine Corps' ANTPS-80 Ground Air Task-Oriented Radar, or the GATOR, which is a multi-mission air and missile surveillance system. Now, in the context of stepped-up U.S. counter-drug operations, or at least so they say, and a visible military buildup across the Caribbean, including new access agreements with the Dominican Republic, this deployment is already being read in the region as having implications that go well beyond the fight against narcotics. Now, also last week, the United States seized what it claims was a sanctioned oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela, according to President Donald Trump in a statement last Wednesday, in a move that sent oil prices higher and sharply escalated tensions between Washington and Caracas. All of this is happening while a raging debate continues over the use of extrajudicial force in the murder of fishermen in fishing boats in the Southern Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. Now, here to make sense of all of this is the former Minister of National Security and the former Commissioner of Police of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that's Mr. Gary Griffith, as well as a member of the Movement for Social Justice in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that's Mr. David Abdullah. Here is that conversation that we had with them. Gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Thank you.
Yes, and before we get into it, of course, we were having a conversation on background before we started this conversation, and that has to do with the intersection between you two gentlemen. I was always under the impression that you both served in the previous UNC Alliance cabinet, but apparently that was not the case. But you did cross paths. So, Gary, I want to start with you. Tell me about the relationship you had with Mr. Abdullah.
Well, again, good morning again. In the People's Partnership Administration at that time, 2010 to 2015, David Abdullah at that time, the partnership had, I think, about 4 or 5 different political parties. Mr. Abdullah was the representative for one of those parties, and that is what caused the annihilation of the PNM in 2010. The UNC could not have won alone whatsoever, so they utilized the unions, the NJAC, the Congress of the People, of which I was a part of, and because of that, there was an agreement made between all the political leaders, inclusive of Mr. Abdullah and Kamala Persad Bissessar, and that's how I got to know him through that. So there was a pre-election, and then after election, where he was a senator in the government, I was the national security advisor. So obviously we'll cross paths. My wife, Nicole Dyer-Griffith, was a minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Communications, so she was in the Senate with him. But then, unfortunately, lack of respect for any party outside of the UNC started seeping in. And as per normal usually happens with these coalitions in Trinidad and Tobago, with that, you will stand on principle, and Mr. Abdullah did what he thought was the appropriate thing to do, and they left. I then became Minister of National Security. But and since then, Mr. Abdullah has proven to be a very, very powerful voice in Trinidad and Tobago to stand on certain principles. Sometimes I am on the other side of the fence, and what you can actually see, as he said, you just have to look at what is behind me and to what is behind him.
But Mr. Abdullah, and I think that is those points of agreement are important, because I suspect on the conversation that we're having today that both of you gentlemen may have points of divergence. But Mr. Abdullah, when Mr. Griffith was National Security Minister and Commissioner of Police, and again I say this to Mr. Griffith all the time, I remember that one year when he had it was that national security in his role as Commissioner of Police, in the lead up to Carnival. I can't remember what year it was, but I do remember masqueraders meeting Mr. Griffith. He was the celebrity of the day, really, because there was that sense of safety on the street, and there was that reduction in crime at the time. Is that how you remember Mr. Griffith during his time as Commissioner of Police? Or you might have a different recollection.
Well, thanks for having us on. And yes, Gary is right in terms of that period between 2010 and 2015. The MSJ-led Movement for Social Justice, we left the partnership in June of 2012. And then obviously we were critical of many of the partnership's policies from then on. Tried to raise these issues internally within the partnership, within the meetings of the political leaders of the partnership. And so we had no choice but to leave. In terms of Gary's stewardship as Commissioner of Police, yes, he was a very popular Commissioner of Police. He was very hands-on, so he was out and about and very accessible.
Always on the ground, always on the ground. That's what I remember.
So I think that did endear him, and yes, there was a reduction. We were critical openly of some of the policing methods and so on. And I remember one guy may not want to comment on this, but there was one particular incident down in Carnage where a young girl was killed, and we organized a demonstration dealing with her death. A difference of views as to whose bullet killed that child. We're not going to debate that in public now. That may still be under investigation, and that took place many years ago. So yes, we have different views in terms of the policing methodology and crime, approach to crime and violence. But and then of course Gary then launched his own political party. Well, Nicole had one before, which Gary is a part of, and then Gary launched the National Transformation Alliance, but has bowed out of active politics now, while I'm still fighting the good fight in the political arena.
So, gentlemen, the reason why I decided to have you both on the program this week, of course, the context here for us in Grenada is the request that was made by Washington to the government of Grenada with respect to the installation of radar equipment at the Maurice Bishop International Airport. And as Mr. Abdullah, in a previous appearance on our program, you articulated, and some of the other panelists articulated, the irony of the U.S. making that request in the context of Grenadian history, and with the revolution and all of that, and the aptly named Maurice Bishop International Airport now. But of course, we noticed that perhaps what might have been happening in Grenada again, still yet undecided because the Prime Minister has not come out publicly to say whether or not it's yes or no on Grenada's part. But that radar has been installed in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago at the A.N.R. Robinson International Airport. So I want to begin with you, Mr. Abdullah, to react to that radar installation there. What are sentiments on the ground with respect to that radar installation? And in your own view, is that something that you support or agree with? In the context of national defense, of course, that is a whole geopolitical issue. But in the context of national defense for Trinidad and Tobago, do you see this as national defense? Do you see this as sort of an extension of U.S. military hegemony in the region against Venezuela? How do you see this?
Right, thanks. And some of your introductory comments earlier, the point that Mrs. Persad, Bissessar, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, her story changed about the radar 4 and 5 times in 4 and 5 days. I was paying attention to what Gary was saying on a television program this morning, and when he was that her story has been changing, and what that means, two things. One, it means that she lacks credibility now on this question, because you cannot be Prime Minister and Chair of the National Security Council and making statements that take the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the region and the wider world for fools. You're unaware, or it was doing some road repair. The plane came in to do road repair. What nonsense is that? And then you say, oh, I didn't speak about it because we were trying to keep it secret, because of the nature of the radar. Well, you can't keep the location of a radar secret at the end of an airport runway or just next to the airport runway in a small island like Tobago. People live in close proximity to there. People are up and down in that airport all the time. You can't keep that secret. You can't keep the flying several very large military aircraft into the airport in Tobago secret either. So that was a nonsense statement. And so the statements keep changing. Then she said it was to detect narco traffickers and people smuggling arms and people trafficking. At the same time she said that, excuse me, the Minister of Defense said it was to detect drones. So you got all of these conflicting statements, which really made the credibility of the government very, very porous in terms of lacking consistency. And I want to commend Minister Dickon Mitchell for doing a very adroit, very good dance around the issue by not saying anything. Then he went to Parliament and he made a statement in the Parliament on the record in Hansard. Now, no government minister in Trinidad and Tobago has been in Parliament about this thing. In fact, when they asked about it, they say they can't answer according to some standing order, which is in the public interest, which means they can't answer. So they've not said anything in Parliament, which then goes on the Hansard record, and they have to be held to account to what is said in Parliament. Whereas Prime Minister Mitchell did say, he went in Parliament, he said, yes, it is being considered. We're consulting stakeholders and so on, and we'll make a decision soon. So, and of course, no decision has been forthcoming. The radar is now in Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll come back to the issue of what the radar is, but there was a very interesting, two interesting statements, and one by his former deputy political leader in the National Transformation Alliance, who took over from him as interim leader when Gary stepped aside after the elections in April, and a former colleague, I believe, of his in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindial, who has been very out. He was the former head of the national, let me just get it right, the director of the country's National Coastal Surveillance Radar Center, and therefore was very knowledgeable about not only radar systems, but about Trinidad and Tobago's radar capability. Very important statements, which we could perhaps come back to a little later on. But there was also an important statement which was published in the Trinidad and Tobago press a few days ago. And this quoted a statement made by Specialist Second Class Natasha Chevalier Losado on December 4th on the radio station Animal Bay, which is a US base. And she said she spoke about it in detail and said that, quote, American military forces have installed an AN/TPS-80G/ATOR system in Trinidad and Tobago. The surveillance system primarily functions as aerial surveillance, say can be used in U.S. conflict with Venezuela. Tobago is approximately 70 miles from Venezuela's Paria Peninsula. And she went on to detail what the radar is designed to do and what it is meant to do, as did Lieutenant Commander Dindial, who gave extensive statements in the Trinidad meeting. So today has made another statement about the radar. So it's very disturbing. And when we look at the geopolitical thing a little later, I want to quote from the recently released National Security Strategy by the Trump administration, because we have to understand what's going on in this region in the context of the U.S. strategy.
Yes, absolutely. Let me bring in Mr. Griffith. Mr. Griffith, there might be points of departure and points of agreement with respect to the radar. In an interview that you did with, I believe it was Tobago Updates, you spoke about the defense capabilities of this equipment that's there at the A&R Robinson Airport. We're not putting the Prime Minister, that's Prime Minister Kamala Persad, Bissessar's sort of bobbing and weaving on this sort of opaque way in which she addressed this. Talk about your position in the context, wearing your national security hat now, with having the radar at the A&R Robinson International Airport. Of course, Mr. Abdullah just said here that this is all about the military build-up against Venezuela.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, well, to start, there's very little I could state to contradict what David just said pertaining to the different opinions you're hearing from the Prime Minister and the government. It was there's nothing to hide. We're going to fix we are fixing the runway. Then the worst one was when she said that it was I didn't want it to be known because it was a secret so that the criminals would not know. Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles would have seen the radar being set up on the same day. So there was absolutely I don't know who's giving her that advice. How you could think that you could set up a radar and you would do it in a hush-hush way so that the criminals wouldn't know. As soon as the radar arrived, the taxi drivers, the stevedores, the people in customs, the people, they would have seen it. So there was never a clandestine covert operation. A radar is not where you could hide. So it means that whoever is giving her this type of advice, they're giving her the misinformation. And it is unfortunately causing many persons to second guess that if it means that you're hiding something and you're not being honest. And this is no fault of hers. I think she's just getting very bad advice because it is the first government that I know there's absolutely no one with military training or experience in the whole government. And there's no one with a senior level of law enforcement experience because we have a commissioner of police who was junior middle management in the police service. I don't even think that he has the qualification to have applied to be commissioner of police. That's a story by itself because you need 10 years senior experience. And then you have a minister now of Homeland Security who again was junior middle management. So she doesn't have those persons who have that ability to guide her. That's why you're getting all of these different things about kill them violently. They flip-flopping about the radar, the situation with stating that if you don't have a flag, then you're a pirate. So I think it's just based on needing a proper advice. As it pertains to the radar, however, based on, as David would have said, what you see in the back of me, I support it. I welcome it. And I'll tell you why. When I was Minister of National Security, the U.S. wanted a feed of our radar, and I was agreeing to it at that time. And there's a reason for it, not because we are trying to sing for our supper, but the U.S. is part of the CBSI, that Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. They have a responsibility to secure our borders, to secure CARICOM. They have provided immense support throughout CARICOM for training, equipment, logistics, assets. So with that, if it is that they need a feed of our radar to assist us in the problems we had from illegal weapons entering, human trafficking, child prostitution, illegal drugs, and so forth, and they could get a feed of it to assist us and complement our own troops to deal and work with impacts, work with the transnational organized crime unit, so be it. The British forces, they have done it on numerous occasions. The French forces in the Antilles, because of Martinique and so forth, they have also contributed. So the US having a presence here, I did not see it as a concern. As it pertains to the radar itself, likewise, if the radar can act as a complementary factor to enhance the operational capability to secure our borders, it can be of value. What should not happen is that it should not be used in any form or fashion to act as an avenue or a launching pad to assist in any armed conflict with another country, because by doing that, we become part and parcel, aiding and abetting in war. And that is what we should not do. But again, because it is not being said properly, it allows the court of public opinion to perceive that the radar is being set up to assist as a launching pad to attack Venezuela. And Tobagonians will rightfully be fearful. And the reason why they are, it's because of the lack of proper information being fed to the country from the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
Let me bring back Mr. Abdullah, and I want to pick up on something Mr. Griffith said here, and that has to do with the terms and conditions under which this radar is set up. Now, Mr. Griffith, you're hoping that this is not going to be used for armed conflict against Venezuela, but it does appear that that is the case. And while your theory of the case here is that yes, that can be used for anti-narcotics, again, most people don't think so. So I want Mr. Abdullah to pick up on what Mr. Griffith said here about his thinking behind the installation of that equipment at the A&R Robinson Airport.
Yes, so to agree that there has been and is ongoing collaboration between the United States government, the British, the French, and the Dutch, and CARICOM countries with respect to illegal activities in the region, whether it is drug trafficking, human trafficking, trafficking in arms, and so on. That is so and has been going on. The agents or representatives of the Drug Enforcement Agency here in Trinidad and Tobago, the ATF agents here, and they're probably in many other CARICOM countries as well. So there is that ongoing collaboration, and we support that collaboration because the nature of transnational organized crime is collaboration with other states, given the very nature of those crimes. So we have no difficulty with that. The issue, though, is twofold. One is the timing of this radar, right, installation. And so the timing came a day or two to Trinidad and Tobago by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States, General Don Kane. This is the first time in my memory, and Gary could correct me, that a chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff has ever visited Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. And he only came, it was a flying visit, he came for about 2-3 hours to meet with the Prime Minister.
And he had some doubles. Let's not forget the doubles that he left with.
that was the
in jest.
That is the image that
yeah.
Well, no, but the point you're making, Dr. Bob, is important because see that is the photo op that they want people to mask the real intent of the visit. Because that same swing through the Caribbean, he went to Puerto Rico to visit the troops in Puerto Rico because they have F-35 fighter jets and B-52 bombers now stationed in Puerto Rico. That's recent. And he also went on at least one of the naval assets that they have. So he was doing his own assessment of whatever they plan for Venezuela or whatever, because that's what his job is, to do risk assessment, to do preparedness assessments and so on, to advise the President and the Secretary of Defense and the Council of the United States. So he was doing his work. So we can't say, well, he came just as a courtesy call. The Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff doesn't spend time to pay a courtesy call for 2 hours on the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So the timing of it is what is significant, in my view. And what is being said about the nature of this particular radar system, in that it is not simply a defensive system. I'm not an expert, so I'm going upon what Commander Dindial and what the person in the U.S. Army said herself. It is not simply a defensive radar system to detect this, that, and the other. It is actually part of offensive capability, in the sense that not only does it detect missiles, but it also could be used to assist in locating targets for missiles and so on. So we have to understand it and the nature of this particular radar system and some of the statements that have come out of the U.S. in this regard. And that is why we think that radar should not have been installed in Tobago, particularly at this time. It wasn't simply, in my view, support for the Trinidad radar system, which Commander Dindial, and I'm purely going on what he's saying, right, Gary? I have
No, he's
no
correct, he's correct.
evidence otherwise that we do have a properly functioning coastal radar system. Yeah, and therefore it need not have been boosted by this. What he said is that the Coast Guard did not have functioning resources to be able to deal with people coming into our coastal territorial waters that would have been picked up by the radar because the vessels are not functioning, or the human resources of the Coast Guard. That's what he said.
But Mr. Griffith, I want to pick up on that here. You seem very optimistic that this is about anti-drug activities, anti-narcotic activities. The public, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, I suspect, but in the Southern Caribbean, are not sold on that question, that this is about anti-narcotics.
Yeah, I'm in a difficult patch here because the vast majority of the country seem to be supportive of what Mr. Abdullah is saying. So I feel like, like you're batting and you have 4 men around, my bat and my offside and my onside. I have 3 slips, two gullies, so it's difficult for me to take on. But I am giving you my personal opinion.
Yes, of course.
And again, it goes all the way back to the Prime Minister, her actions. It is not conducive to what a Prime Minister will say. Again, I go back, I will double down. There's no one around her who has that type of military or law enforcement capability to advise her. So the comments she will make and the things she will say, it has not assisted in trying to cause the buy-in that I am speaking about, and that buy-in to say that this can be of value to Trinidad and Tobago. What Mr. Abdullah is stating, that the radar, it has defense capabilities, but it also has offensive capabilities. But having said that, the aircraft carrier, that alone, those have missiles they are heat-seeking missiles that can easily, if they want to pinpoint Caracas, they can do that without the radar. So there's never a need for a radar. That aircraft carrier and the destroyers, they have the capability for heat-seeking missiles to go across. That radar, when it is, you get a higher level, like Patriots or Patriot missiles or whatever, that you may need some type of radar like that. But the government is not pushing proper facts. Like, for example, my take on it as a military person, I drafted that Ministry of Defense 2010 for the Prime Minister. She didn't implement it in her first tour of duty as Prime Minister. And there was a reason for that. In anticipation that something may take place in Trinidad and Tobago. But if it does, we have absolutely no defense mechanism whatsoever in Trinidad and Tobago. And as we come into the second quarter of the 21st century, we can't just be sitting down with a white picket fence and say, all is well, this is a zone of peace, and we must not protect ourselves. We have no defensive mechanism. So if at any time there's a country who may have been threatening us, who may be stating that we are hostile, we are harboring terrorists, that we are being used as a launching pad to attack their country, and they will enter that country if they want. Oh, by the way, this is what Venezuela said about Trinidad and Tobago. I, as a Prime Minister, will put defensive mechanism in anticipation of anything like that may take place. The only way that defensive mechanism can happen is with a radar like that, because you need, when those if missiles are launched from Venezuela, when I heard the Prime Minister initially state that when Venezuela made those threats to Trinidad and Tobago, she will have her Coast Guard go out and deal with the. We have no Coast Guard. When I was Minister, I left the PNM government with 12 diamond vessels, 4 helicopters, 2 aircraft. Now the Air Guard, they don't even have a kite to fly. The Coast Guard is totally flattened. So there's nothing. So we have no defense capability whatsoever. Let me just quickly add, as it pertains to what David was speaking about with the radar, our radar is so effective. Every time I go Grenada for Carnival and I'm coming back and trying to get over a little hangover or whatever from Carnival, I am intercepted by a Coast Guard vessel, and they will intercept, they will meet us. And unlike what the Prime Minister said, we don't need to have if we don't have a flag, they didn't shoot at us and call us pirates. We were registered. And so it means that the radar is working, because every time it is I leave Grenada to get to Trinidad and Tobago, the Coast Guard intercepts us. So they know, they'll see vessels entering. Going back to the situation with our radar, with the United States, if missiles can be launched, say 15 missiles launched at Trinidad and Tobago, that can take out every one of our 5 major cities, our 2 airports, our 2 ports. Point Lisas gets hit, so it's going to be a fire for several months, if not years. We need to have some type of missile capability to intercept any missile that is launched towards Trinidad and Tobago. People may feel that I am exaggerating, and how can I think of something? You have to be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. And that is why a radar like that can be of value. The radar is not going to be used as an avenue to cause Venezuela to target Trinidad and Tobago. The radar is set up in 45 minutes. So the radar is not the issue. The issue is those persons who will utilize it in the wrong manner. And so I do not see us being a target. I think it was very irresponsible of the PNM side or in Tobago to say that Tobagonians are fearful because now they will now be targeted by Venezuela. That is not true. The role of politicians on either side is not to deliberately put fear into citizens, but to try to make them feel safe. So yes, I do agree with David to the point that how this is being fed, how it is being sold is not the appropriate manner. And because of the things that we are seeing with the United States, it has caused many persons to start second guessing. When you have an admiral make a decision on what is known as double tap, and that was not double tap, by the way. Double tap is 2 shots being fired simultaneously at the same target to make sure it is neutralized. Fire, the person is now has absolutely no way of escape, no way to be a threat for you, and then you fire again. That is where it is, you know, border on war crime. And you notice the politicians who gave the initial order, they're now starting to moonwalk like Michael Jackson and say, well, you know, I was in the room when he fired the second shot. I went to the washroom. I had other things to do.
Oh, like Shaggy, it wasn't me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he did. And you know, it goes, let me just quickly add, it goes right back to the point being made of an illegal order. I had that as the commissioner of police. The prime minister was alluding to me at the time during COVID to arrest persons in their homes if they had excess of more than 10, because he was ignorant of not understanding his own law. In the public health regulations, I only had authority to arrest persons in public, not in private. Had I listened to the prime minister foolishly, I would have now succumbed to doing something illegal and the taxpayers would have paid the price. So it shows a lot that military persons must be very careful not to adhere to illegal commands.
Mr. Abdullah, I want to bring you back here, though, on the question of Venezuela's aggressive posture. Yes, and 2 things can be true at the same time. And we had this conversation several times on this program before. Yes, what the U.S. is doing, that is certainly a war of aggression. No one is disputing that. But in the context of the Southern Caribbean, Venezuelan assets have also been aggressive. I mean, we look at what they did, what they did in the context of Guyana. We look at right now that it may not be the Venezuelan state, but you know, there is a two Trinidadian nationals held in Venezuelan territory now. There has been years of intimidation by the Venezuelan Coast Guard. I remember in the context of Grenada, for example, that they seize boats and they make these demands. They extort people really for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In the 90s, there was this boat in Grenada called the Eastward that was impounded in the island of Margarita because that boat had a specific, I think it ran adrift when it was coming from Trinidad or whatever the case might be. And they towed that boat into Margarita and the Margarita port for almost a year. And they treated Grenadian citizens as though they were prisoners, as though they committed a crime. So the point I'm making, Mr. Abdullah, in as much as we see what the U.S. is doing, that aggression, it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, and we know that this is not about narcotics. Clearly, this is not about narcotics. I mean, the mask is off on that question. But let us talk about Trinidad's vulnerability against Venezuela. I think we lost Mr. Abdullah, but Mr. Griffith, I want you to pick up on that. The vulnerability that Trinidad and Tobago confronts on this question.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And let me just tell you, I'm glad that I got in there so that David could have a response to what I said.
Yes.
The Guardian, the only time Trinidad and Tobago has received any type of hostility from any country outside of Trinidad and Tobago has been Venezuela. For decades, the La Guardia Nacional have been instrumental in entering our territorial waters, attacking our fishermen, seizing their vessels, seizing their catch, taking all the assets from them, and we did nothing about it. In 2014, when I acquired the 12 diamond vessels that would have done exactly what the OPVs would have done, but for 1.2 billion TT less, I had an immediate, and this is where it comes in. It wasn't for me to threaten Venezuela, but to tell Venezuela, listen, I now have enough firepower that if you enter my territorial waters, we have radar, and we now have diamond vessels with a lot of firepower. And if it is you enter our waters to attack our fishermen, we will fight back. And what I did initially, and that was the last time the Venezuelan defense minister entered Trinidad and Tobago. This was in 2014, because I used it was dialogue. He came to Trinidad and Tobago with all of the heads of the military, and we signed a bilateral agreement And with that, it was the first time that Venezuela admitted that, yes, there was a mistake. There was usually a problem with that zone between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuelan waters. LaGuardia National has now been informed of where that zone is, and they gave the assurance that they will not attack Trinidad and Tobago again. That is should be what is required, dialogue. What we did not see in here recently was tit for tat. So Venezuela will make a statement, the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister will make a statement, they will then call her drunkard, she will then make another statement, and that is what will cause wars, that escalation. However, what we have seen in Venezuela, it was typical of what you call a bully. The United States have done every single thing in their power to show that they intend to flex their muscles over Venezuela. But the Venezuelan president doesn't want to say anything about Venezuela. He continues to attack Trinidad and Tobago. But that's what bullies
the U.S. Yeah. And both of them are bullies, really.
So I really hope that David will understand the point of view that I have as a military person. As I said, first they said that we were harboring terrorists. Then they said that we are being used as a launching pad to destabilize Venezuela. They then said that they will invade any country who have these people. They call the prime minister a drunkard. They said they are going to cut all ties with the energy sector. They then decided to abuse Trinidad and Tobago by stating because of us having dialogue and joint training with the United States. So they have continued, and the thing is, whilst all this is happening, the United States attacking them, and they're saying nothing about the United States, but they continue to attack Trinidad and Tobago. So the prime minister, as I said, I think her actions was based on it's a retaliation, and what is required is proper dialogue. And that even within CARICOM, we have seen certain prime ministers make a statement and a decision in one side over the other, and without proper dialogue, we are fragmented. And I think that was the time to circle the wagons for us to work together.
Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We'll be back for the second segment of the program after this. And as we go to break, we're going to present some highlights of activities of the Grenada Embassy here in the Washington, D.C. area and what they have been up to over the last 2 weeks. As Grenadians in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area get ready to usher in the Christmas and holiday season, the country's embassy held a series of activities to shore up its representation in the area. First, by hosting a meet and greet at the Grenada Embassy in Washington, and then by participating in the 12th annual Winter National Embassy Showcase. The Winter National Embassy Showcase is an exciting celebration of the cultural and culinary traditions of Washington, D.C.'s diplomatic community. The festival, in its 12th year, boasts a bustling global marketplace where over 50 embassies showcase their nations through engaging displays of visual art, authentic cuisine, handcrafted treasures, and insights into travel and tourism. The Bubb Report was on location at the Reagan International Trade Center for the event and spoke with organizer Alan McKetchin about this year's activity.
It's amazing. We have 69 embassies participating, including the Embassy of Grenada, and Ambassador Tarly Francis has been just an amazing partner. We've had the opportunity to showcase some of the travel and tourism opportunities through Winter National on the cultural side. We've also hosted the ambassador to talk about trade and investment opportunities. Oh my gosh, we started in 2011. We were literally outside in December with 4 embassies, most of them equatorial. So they were incredibly good to be outside in December. Now we're indoors. We have 69 embassies participating and over 7,000 attendees registered to attend the program.
Alison McKetchin is the executive director of the World Trade Center, Washington, D.C., and vice president of international programs at Trade Center Management Associates, a privately held, wholly owned subsidiary of the Boston-based Drew Company. Of course, the World Trade Center in Washington, D.C. at the Reagan Center normally hosts this event.
So it's grown exponentially, and we've really done that with the partnership of our diplomatic partners. The embassies are amazing in curating exhibits, showcasing their arts, their handcrafts, their sales opportunity, food and beverage, and it's a great way that the local citizens here in DC can learn more about the astonishing diplomats that work here and the countries they come from.
And finally, we have cultural items as well. We have live entertainment from the different countries too.
We do. We've got 2 performance stages, 12 countries on the main performance stage, and then the Arab League has another 13 countries performing on theirs. So that's going on all afternoon, and music and dance.
Yeah. And of course, that just showcases how international DC is, right?
Oh, DC is an international community. You know, there are a lot of former U.S. diplomats that reside here. There are a lot of U.S. government agencies that focus on international policy. So there are a lot of people that have lived overseas here. So when they see programs like that, they're excited to come and participate and engage, and the local citizens as well. We've got a number of school groups here that are in town, one from the Philadelphia region, another from Maryland. So really excited to be here, and we're just delighted to host everyone.
The Grenada Embassy pulled out all the stops to showcase the best of Grenada's artisan creations, as well as culinary delights. Of course, the oil down was a hit.
Winston L. Cato Meat Mouth Oil Down.
Cato's Meat Mouth Oil Down.
Yes,
is that the name of it?
So this is what we are featuring here live today. Cato's Meat Mouth Oil Down. So the Meat Mouth Oil Down concept, guys, you're getting your whole pigtail in your oil down. You're getting pork shoulders, you're getting chicken, you're getting boiled egg, shrimps, crab, and much, much more. So we take oil down extreme and excessive coconut milk. You have to put plenty turmeric in meat mouth oil down and plenty green seasoning. You have to put your seasoning. If your meat don't kusume, you ain't ready for our oil down yet. You're not ready. You know, so Grenada to the world, man. This is what it is.
What has been the reaction to the oil down that you prepared today?
Well, so far I'm still have on my gloves. So I've been in the kitchen. I've been in the kitchen all day. So let me come with me. Let's find out. Come with me.
It's like passion fruit and ginger, Grenada.
And I want you to take a taste right now on camera. Sorry.
Yes,
take a taste. Let the viewers know how the passion fruit twist. You know,
it warms you to the soul.
Oh my God, I can't say it any better than she did. It's nice and sweet, and we'll cool down this road. All right.
So guys, you see that Grenada only attracts sweet people. If you're not a sweet person, you are not coming to Grenada. Watch this, right?
The first time impression, never had oil down before. It's breadfruit, it's chicken, it's dumpling, it's green bananas, coconut milk, plenty.
Dr. Wendell Cornwell, counselor and alternate representative of the Grenada Embassy, spoke to us about the importance of Grenadian representation at Winter National 2025.
Because we were here last year, this is one of the most traffic events that we actually take part in. And what we find here is countries displaying their art, displaying their tourism product, displaying their cultural products. Today we have our oil down national dish, which is always a hit. We brought it last year, we brought it this year again, and we've had people just giving us a lot of positive reviews, which is, we know what oil down is, and we have a chance to show others what oil down is and what it means for us. And so we're displaying our spices, we're showing our national dish, our arts and crafts. And yeah, we're having a lot of positive reaction, a lot of foot traffic, and this is really a wonderful event for us.
This event represents all the embassies come together, exhibit what they have, the country have, like tourism, whatever they produce, a lot of produce, you can get here, you can get a local juice, the oil. So the most countries here they represent and they showcase the countries by culture, food, tourism. That's the main thing. It's a connection for all the other countries, and also for people to come and see what the country has. So it's a tourism connection. Every year it's get bigger every year. And this year it's even bigger. It's coming like a competition. Which country is the best? We have visitors vote, we have best food vote, we have people's choice. So we hoping that the island will give the people a choice and come to Grenada to taste more.
Very well. And have Grenadians help to volunteer, help you guys set up?
Oh yes, we got Grenadians from New York come down to cook that island. We got, Grenadians support each other. So we all here support each other and trying to make things work, Thank you. And we have local things. Dr. Samuel do all her crafts, which is very beautiful to get for Christmas gifts. She do candles. So come out and support Grenada then. Yeah.
So my name is Dr. Bruno Mazzali. Let me tell you this, I'm from Tanzania. So in Tanzania, what we know is the Grenadian, Jamaican, they have a DNA all the way in Africa. It may be Tanzania, it may be Jamaica, I don't know, but the reason why, because Grenada, I feel like I'm really affiliated. The way how I've been welcomed with the First Lady, and all the time when I see her, the way how she treats me is a special culture of Africa. And then one day I realized that she has a big mission, and I didn't know what to do. And now I realize I'm a part of Grenada family to do whatever it takes to make it a difference in our smaller island in Grenada. Because all the time when I've been welcomed to Grenada, it's just like Hakuna Matata, welcome boy home.
Okay. All right, Ms. Song, tell us. We have the Grenada exhibit here at International.
Yes, we have. Our lovely lady over here, Miss Agnes. We have some of our spices here. We have the cloves over there. Turmeric over here. We have our anise, cloves, nutmegs. And of course we have Dr. Michelle Samuel's items over here. Lemongrass tea. And of course our spice rum, Calypso rum. Come around over here, we have cinnamon in its different stages. Cinnamon here. We also have our little baskets with the different spices. Then we go over here to the display by Dr. Michelle. Most of the stuff she's painted and made herself. You got the different flavors in there. People think it's something that you eat, but it's a canned one. And there, Dr. Michelle's back, and these are her products.
So how has the turnout been for the folks who have been here?
Awesome, awesome. People have received bags and gifts, and they're just happy to be in Grenada. We're going to be sharing some oil dog in a few minutes. So this is awesome.
We have one now.
Oil dog is in the building.
That's so good. That's good to know.
Oil dog is in the building. Okay, well, thank you, and come again.
Yes.
Welcome to our 2025 year and meet and greet. The open house is for us to take the opportunity to say hello to each other and to wish each other a good holiday period coming up, Christmas and what have you, and also the best for the new year. I was given a little history or story a little earlier on, which is not really a joke, but it's kind of humorous in my heart. We came in 2023, and when we came, it was September, and we wanted to do an open house so that we could get to meet people and people could meet us, and we could. So we did it in November, and when we did it in November, it was sort of like pretty formal and kind of half official and so. And in any case, everybody asked, so when is the Christmas party? Then in 2024, last year, we had a meet and greet again. Well, we were fortunate to have visitors last year, so we had more than one open houses during the year. But then we had another one later in the year, and we wanted to know again, when will be the Christmas party? So we decided this year we'll have it in December. We can't have it too late, because it gets colder and most people will be out. We can't have it too late. But what I did, you can hear the DJ. What music he playing there? Right? So this, don't ask that again this year. I want to welcome you all to the house of the people of Grenada in Washington, D.C. This is your home, Grenadians, friends of Grenada, and children who know that this house is yours. It means that you are either from Grenada, related to Grenadians, or you realize that anything they say Grenadian, once you have a piece of your fingernail or your bloodline or your neighbor's tree, is yours too. So this is your house. Welcome to your house. We have prepared some food and drink. The staff is very small, as you know, but has worked as though we had 100 people preparing this. And so the table is aplenty. Sister Aileen, I just brought in a beautiful cake. And when they saw the cake, they said, well, look, let's have a few words of welcome. Welcome to you all.
The Grenada Embassy also issues a call to nationals of Grenada in the DMV, meaning the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, to participate in all things Grenadian planned by them. From Washington, D.C., this is Dr. Kellen Bubb.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home...
but Mr. Abdullah, I hope we don't lose...
yes,
please, yes. But go ahead. On the first question there, about Venezuela's posture, please. Yes.
Okay, so several things. First of all, we have to understand that Mrs. Persad Bissessar has had a hostile position to the well before she became Prime Minister. So she supported in 2019 Juan Guaido as the president of Venezuela, which was a nonsense, it was a farce. And she also actually called on the United States to sanction Trinidad and Tobago's government when Delcy Rodriguez of Venezuela visited Trinidad for a very short meeting with the then Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley. And she called for sanctions because she claimed that the plane that Ms. Rodriguez came in on was a sanctioned plane, and therefore Trinidad and Tobago should be sanctioned. So she has had a position that was Washington for quite some time, and so we have to understand the background to her politics, and the Venezuelans understand that, and therefore they will interpret and analyze every action by the government in terms of her stance with respect to the Maduro government going 5 years. So that's the first point I want to make. The second, and therefore that she has stood with Washington against the Bolivarian government for very many years. The second point I want to make is that yes, there have been incidents in the past with respect to the Guardia Nacional, and the government or higher up people sometimes is just those guys who are on the boat at a particular time deciding that they're going to do certain things. And the point about dialogue is important. Now, when the first Trinidadian was held, together with a number of Colombians, and we have to understand the role of Colombia in the geopolitics. There was Colombians that were charged and with the murder of the then president of Haiti, Jovenel Moïse, right? Mercenaries. There were Colombian mercenaries that tried a drone bomb attack. All those things are facts that have been well established. There were Colombian mercenaries and so on that have engaged in sabotage activity in Venezuela, because after the peace agreement between FARC, which is one of the organizations that was involved in armed struggle against government, and the government of Colombia, there were a lot of demobilized paramilitaries, not just FARC, but also the right-wing paramilitaries who were involved in a lot of killings in Colombia, supported by the government at the time. A lot of those guys got demobilized and have become mercenaries. And so when there were some Colombians together with one Trinidadian, there was a total denial that any Trinidadian was involved, right? Nobody knew who this person was, and those statements came from Homeland Security Minister, from the Prime Minister, total denials, right? Then the media actually uncovered the family of the guy who were living in Clacton and so on. And they say, yes, he was a fisherman here. He used to be here in Clacton Bay or down in Tahiti and that kind of thing. So, or Tahiti. So it was clear that there was a Trinidadian involved. I then made a public statement saying that what should happen is that, because we didn't have an ambassador to be recalled to Caracas because the government had changed and there was no ambassador.
Yes.
I suggested that, having regard to the political tensions that have historically existed, that the government send in an independent person of stature to go and get some of the facts from the Venezuelans, including interrogating the Trinidadian to find out exactly what was going on. And Gary, do remember that there was an incident some years ago, I think it was during the partnership time, if I'm not mistaken, when there were a number of Trinidadians who were being held in Caracas. They were Muslims in transit, and the Venezuelans claimed that they were involved in some kind of terrorist activity. And the Trinidad and Tobago government sent Admiral Kelshaw, if my memory serves me right, to go to Caracas to investigate the thing. Admiral Kelshaw being interviewed on the television here in Trinidad and Tobago. And when he was asked about it, he made one very significant statement. He said the Venezuelan intelligence is very good intelligence. That was his statement. In other words, he did not come out and say anything more about it. What he learned is that they had good intelligence about what those guys were about. Now, they were eventually released. So the point was that had somebody of that kind of stature, with perhaps some military background like Gary, didn't have to be a political person like me, but going to Venezuela, that's being diffused, not by the guy being returned to Trinidad, because if he was involved in illegal activity in Venezuela, the Venezuelan had a right to arrest him, right? Just as if somebody who's a Venezuelan was here in Trinidad and Tobago doing something illegal, then Trinidad and Tobago police have a right and have to arrest them and charge them and imprison them until they have the day in court. So, but we have to understand that Venezuela government has always felt that they're under threat. There was an American mercenary who landed in Venezuela, and they were rounded up very quickly. And he gave a very detailed Gray Zone with Max Blumenthal, I'm sure you've seen it, where he spoke about all the high-level people in the U.S. administration, in the White House at the time, who were part of this plan. So these are not fictitious things, and therefore, when a government understands that it is under that kind of threat, it will tend to react in a particular way in defense of its right to exist as a sovereign nation and the survival of the government itself, which perhaps we don't understand in our context. So we also have to understand the culture and history of Latin America is very different from that of the Caribbean. They fought for their independence. Bolivar fought for independence. And therefore, there is a greater sense of nationalism in Venezuela. What this whole issue has done, and Gary's wrong, because they attack Maduro, and they have attacked Trump all the time. That may not necessarily get reported in our media. The attacks on the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago obviously gets reported here in Trinidad and Tobago, but they attack U.S. imperialism all the time. So the issue of the U.S. aggression, all those military vessels, the trafficking thing that narrative has been totally destroyed. When Trump released a convicted narco trafficker, the ex-president of Honduras, what's his name? Juan Hernandez, I think it was, who was convicted in a U.S. court of trafficking more than 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. So that narrative has been shot through in the U.S. as well as globally. But what is significant is that in Venezuela, there's an increased sense of nationalism and patriotism, even by sections of the opposition, because people have signed up to join a militia. Old people, women, people in the opposition, they have signed up to join a militia because there's a sense that their sovereignty and their sense of nationhood is under threat by the United States. And we have to understand that and understand the culture and dynamics. And you know, but life is going on. I just got a video clip from a colleague who is in Venezuela. People are going about their daily life, preparing for Christmas. Caracas is decorated with Christmas lights, just like anywhere else, and so on. Yeah.
You just can't fly in there because, you know, the airspace is now blocked off by the
Not
U.S.
totally.
no-fly zone.
No, there are flights. No. There's
There are
that
flights.
no-fly zone is. Yeah, there are. Copa is flying in. There are a number of airlines that are flying into Caracas. That no-fly zone is not a legal no-fly zone. Gary could give you what a legal no-fly zone is. This is
Well,
just
I
Trump
mean,
saying that,
well, Brother Abdullah, in the context of the U.S., do they really care about international law and what is legal and what is
the
not?
point I'm making. The point I'm making is no, and that is an important point I'm making. The U.S. does not care about international law or anything else, and so on. So sanctions, when they declare sanctions against Cuba, against Venezuela, those are illegal sanctions. You know, legal sanctions are those that are approved by the United Nations Security Council. Yes, so those are illegal sanctions. They're illegitimate. They're wrong, and we must say that. So when the Prime Minister says in Trinidad and Tobago that the radar is to be used to stop sanctioned oil and vessels coming out of Venezuela, she is sub legality. That those sanctions are not legal.
Now, let us get to the other question that Mr. Griffith raised, and that brings us to the other point that we're going to talk about here, and that has to do with the whole notion of the Caribbean as a zone of peace. Mr. Griffith, perhaps one of the areas that you agree with your Prime Minister on is the idea that the Caribbean is not a zone of peace. In fact, you rubbished it as nonsense, really. But let us talk about your position on the issue here on the zone of peace, because I think there is a conflation between what the original framers of the Zone of Peace Declaration meant versus what it is understood to be now. But let us get your understanding of it and why you support Mr. Persad Bissessar's position on this, which is a point of contention that she has with the rest of CARICOM.
Yeah, sure. So, but just to clarify again, what I was speaking about is recently, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, Venezuela have been virtually mum on trying to openly attack the United States. You've been hearing a lot more. Let's talk. Let's have dialogue.
Peace.
Yeah, but Trinidad and Tobago, your prime ministers are drunkard. We don't have work with you, the energy sector. How dare you? So that's what I was speaking about. The other thing you spoke about, that David spoke about, I actually sent that delegation to Venezuela, Admiral Keltrell and some immigration officers. And that is the point. I did that to try to deal with, you have to know to deflate this situation, deflate the tension. Because it can escalate. And that is what I'm not seeing. We're not seeing dialogue. What we're seeing is hostility, rhetoric, muscle flexing, and that is not what is required. As it pertains to the zone of peace, the term is straightforward. The Caribbean is a zone of peace. It is not to say that it is a peaceful place because there's no, and you have to look at crime statistics to ascertain whether it is a zone of peace. Based on how it was framed, we are trying to say that we intend to ensure that we will not compromise our position and be part and parcel in trying to cause any hostility regionally or internationally. So that is the concept of the zone of peace. So technically, yes, we are in an area that is a zone of peace. But in the same manner, we can't just sit back and believe that because of that, we must not try to start protecting ourselves in the eventuality of any hostile some type of aggression by external forces. And that is why we have the French forces in the Antilles here on numerous occasions, the British forces coming here to be involved in training and operations, and the US. So people say, well, if we are a zone of peace, why we have them? You know, there's a saying, you can't be half pregnant. It's either you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. So because of what we have seen recently with human trafficking, illegal drugs, illegal weapons, there is that degree of violence that we have seen in the Caribbean that has intensified. When you look at the top 10 countries in the world as it pertains to the murder in relation to population, half of they're in the Caribbean. So it shows that we can't just sit back and say because we're a zone of peace, we must not try to increase our military capability, our defensive capability, trying to work with our international allies to protect us from any hostile situation that may take place. So that is where I speak about supporting the Prime Minister. Don't use the word zone of peace to justify us not being prepared for the worst.
Mr. Abdullah, you're hearing what Mr. Griffith says about the notion of the Caribbean as a zone of peace here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm glad Gary has clarified it because some of his earlier statements in the media use it as that. And you're right, because the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has wrongly conflated the idea of the Caribbean as a zone of peace, which refers to no or that conflicts between states should not be resolved by force or military action. The Caribbean as a zone of peace means, right? And that position has a historical context of us being a theater of war during the period of European colonialism and imperialism and the enslavement of African people, where we were fought over, by the British, the French, the Spanish, and therefore we don't want us to be that kind of theater of war again, as distinct from having peace within our societies, which we need and must have, because every citizen is supposed to enjoy a life of security and peace, which really has to deal now with, which is Gary's alley in a sense, has to deal with how you organize laws and policies and the assets of your police service and other security agencies to make sure not just the suppression of crime, but also the social policies lead to violent crime arising. I saw a little clip on one of the international media where in Marseille in France, there are horrible gang wars going on, yes? And people getting shot, you're seeing clips of fellas shooting at each other. So it is not just here in the Caribbean we are facing that. And as I said, we have a unique problem in Trinidad and Tobago with violence and so on. That's not true. I grew up in Jamaica. I left Jamaica in 1971. And Jamaica was becoming, when I left in 1971, a highly violent society. And even in the face of a gun court and a special people who were found with arms and ammunition and so on, that didn't stop violent crime. And so when we had 600 murders a year, Jamaica was having 1,400 murders a year. Yes? And Jamaica's population about twice ours. So we were kind of, running the same thing. So that's an interesting point, which I may have mentioned to you previously, Dr. Bubb. On the 30th of June, 78, 10th special session of the United Nations General Assembly, a resolution was adopted which called for and authorized, quote, the establishment of zones of peace in various regions of the world under appropriate conditions to be clearly defined and determined freely by the state's zone, and so on, right? And then in October of 79, and this is where it's important for you and Grenadians to be aware of, Grenada, under the leadership of, guess who? Prime Minister Maurice Bishop, co-sponsored an Organization of American States resolution that called on all states to recognize the zone of peace. So this was pursuant to the UN General Assembly resolution of the year before. Grenada co-sponsored a resolution that the Caribbean should be a zone of peace and so on. So it goes back very, very many years. And I could give more background to it, but that's an important of that. And let me just make the point, if I could, I'm not sure how much more time we have.
Yes.
That we need to look at the US national security strategy. I'm just going to quote a little piece of it. I haven't had a chance to read the whole document, so I'm reporting from what the media said. So the document stated, and this was released about a week, that one objective is, quote, to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere by reinforcing the Monroe Doctrine. It also stated that other than deterring foreign influence in the hemisphere, it will push to combat the drug trade and irregular migration in private economies. We will reward and encourage the region's governments, political parties, and movements broadly aligned with our principles and strategy. We will deny non-hemispheric competitors. Now, they didn't say that, but you could read China and Russia, non-hemispheric competitors, their big forces or other threatening capabilities, or to own or control strategically vital assets in our hemisphere. It goes on to say, this Trump corollary, so bold-faced, this Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine is a common sense and potent rest of American power and priorities consistent with American security interests. Now, we must understand Venezuela and the aggression against Venezuela, because Venezuela, apart from Chevron, which pumps, American company which pumps oil out of Venezuela right now, Venezuela is also a license to a Chinese oil company to produce oil out of Venezuela. So quite clearly, with the Chinese being involved in investments in Latin America and the Caribbean, the US wants control of oil and gold and other rare earth minerals in Venezuela. The pretender to the throne, who is Corina Machado, who got the Nobel Peace Prize obscenely a few days ago, has openly said that if she is president, then Venezuela's oil and gold and everything else will be open to foreign investors, particularly US. So she's prepared to sell that out. So that is Trump. Trump is about access to the wealth in furtherance of this strategic strategy. Marco Rubio, however, has a different position. He wants to end the Cuban Revolution. He comes out of the Miami Communist. And the way to end the Cuban Revolution, he thinks, is to get rid of the Venezuelan Bolivarian Revolution. So we have to see the thing in that geopolitical context.
And not see it in the context, Mr. Griffith, of these, what we've been seeing, the pretext, like the false pretext at this point. I think the media should be comfortable in saying that this is a false pretext. The context of, just randomly blowing up fishing boats that they claim had the capacity to, you as someone who has a vessel, you're on a vessel, you know that these boats don't have the capacity to reach the United States. And even if they did, that is not the way that we dispense justice. If the U.S. claims to be this liberal society of values and law and order and all of that, and we've seen the fallout of this now with respect to the resignation of Admiral Halsey 3 years before his term was supposed to come to an end, with respect to the whole question of the double tap strikes. I have to say I'm just surprised that there is outrage, at least in the context of the United States, over the quote-unquote double tap strike as opposed to the actual strikes themselves. But again, I'm not a military person here. But I wanted to pick up on the question, Mr. Griffith, there of the fishing boat activities and then what we're seeing, the reaction from the U.S. And of course, the comments by Prime Minister Kamala Persad Bissessar that we should kill them all violently in reaction to those boat strikes.
Yeah, and it goes back to the unfortunate situation under David. I mean, people can see what they want. 2010 to 2015, I think it was the best government this country ever had. The type of names we had there, apart from the David Abdullahs, you talk about Winston Dukaran, Prakash Ramadar, Ganga Singh, Botiwari, Fazal Karim. You're talking about some of the greatest minds in Trinidad and Tobago. When you look at the list now, I'm not going to say much about it. But because of that, she does not have this think tank of powerful minds around her that can guide her. So that's why she has been making, I think it is unforced errors from the radar, how she presented the radar and made different decisions and statements that showed contrast, and she was contradicting herself. Then they stating that any boat that doesn't have a flag is a pirate boat. Then speaking about the recent kidnapping, to see that it was fishy, which I was kind of shocked for you to make a statement like that. And so again, she continues to make these, and then with the killing them violently. I can tell you that is not Kamala Persad Bissessar. Somebody, and David knows her, that is not the lady. So they rack it up and lock it up and light them up and
light them up, empty the clip. I mean, that's not the person.
Yeah, probably everybody wants to be like Gary when he was commissioner, but you're prime minister. And as a prime minister, that is not her. That was never her. So somebody has been wiling her up who does know the difference between a water gun and a Glock. But they feel that by telling her that makes her look strong. That is not what the country doesn't need a strong prime minister. They need to have a level-headed prime minister, somebody who can make decisions not based on emotion. And because she wants, from what I've seen, it's a government of people who she can trust. She believes in loyalty because she has been hurt. The prime minister has been backstabbed by some persons even within her own. Even when I formed my own party and I worked with any local government, it was basically to protect, because I knew that there were more daggers waiting for her on the inside than outside. And I knew that had she lost, lost that local government, they were going to replace her. And that's why I went in there and I worked with her in local government. So having said that, there's nobody in the UNC who has, as I said, any training, knowledge, or experience in law enforcement or the military. and so that she will make comments based on somebody who will go on ChatGPT and say, look, if your vessel is not flagged, it's a pirate. That's not true. It doesn't mean you have to carry a flag. It means you have to be registered. Going back, and it goes right back to the point, gentlemen, of military operations and law enforcement operations. The reason I could use this, I was a military army captain. I was a commissioner of police. The United States have used this as a military operation. With a military operation, you can neutralize a vessel because you see that as a threat. And you've seen it. You've seen missiles going into taking out persons who may be deemed terrorist heads or whatever, and there will be collateral damage. And that is going to be justified because of the fact that it was a military operation. By doing this, my take on it is that if it is that what the United States claims is that this whole matter is to deal with narcotics, illegal drugs, and affiliation with the Venezuelan government, you turn it into a law enforcement operation, it will be more beneficial. Why? Because when you have these vessels in the middle of the water, there's nowhere they could run, there's nowhere they could hide, there's no way that they can target you, because you have the submarines, you have the destroyers, you have everything. You get prisoners, and now with the prisoners, now you can now extract information to find out who are the big fish, who are the suppliers, who are the dealers, where you're getting the funds from. Is Venezuela government involved? But it seems that the dead men tell no tales cannot help you in a situation of armed conflict if you claim that there's massive amount of illegal drugs that have government involvement. So I think that is where the problem lies. And to reach that point of that double tap, as I said, you use double tap, it is allowed simultaneous. You don't fire, and then after, when it is that you realize the persons now they are defenseless. In fact, you have a responsibility even in war, if it is that you have a vessel that is sinking, to be able to save those persons, not to finish them off. So with that, you have seen that the United States have been really after that last situation. They're getting a lot of pressure. As I said, the person who was instrumental in calling the shots, he said, well, I left the room. And this is what usually happens. The poor guys in uniform end up getting thrown under the bus after trying to believe that I am here to adhere to your directive. That is what usually happens. I think Grenada have been very, very good at this. They have stayed neutral. They have stayed silent. But and my final point on this is, as I said, this is the rock, this is the hard place, and this is Kamala. Kamala, you cannot expect the Trinidad and Tobago government to operate in a similar manner and say, we want to have nothing to do with the United States and Venezuela to deal with your business. We depend on the United States for support to deal with our security. If we turn a blind eye and try to shun the United States if they say they would like to have vessels come to Trinidad to be involved in joint operations, and we say no, and they now decide to say, okay, well, see about yourself, and heaven forbid they go back out of the Southern Caribbean, and Venezuela now continues to double down on the initial threats that they make, we have nothing to protect us. I think the dumbest statement ever made in the history of politics in Trinidad and Tobago was Mr. Philip Alexander stating that because Trinidad and Tobago has more Indians than anywhere else, the Indian government will come
nuke. I mean, that was
Venezuela. But that is the quality of certain persons in the government. Things like that. I'm surprised David didn't use that as an avenue to justify why Venezuela have been stating that the things that they have. But because it takes two to make a fight, it takes two to tango, and we have made blunders. And all I can see is from now, it is hope that good sense could prevail, and we must be a little more dignified and professional in our approach as we go forward.
Mr. Abdullah, Mr. Griffith here is making the case that Trinidad and Tobago's relationship with the United States is such, it's so symbiotic that they'll just have to do that diplomatic and militaristic dance against whatever is happening in Venezuela, or whatever their designs are against Venezuela. The economic interest, in other words, trumps other sort of altruistic, non-interference, zone of peace types of things that the rest of the Caribbean has the luxury of engaging with.
Well, no, I mean, everybody in the Caribbean has a vested interest in maintaining the United States. If you look at the tourism industry, a lot of tourists are come to many parts of the Caribbean from the United States. So that and a lot of the trade for other Caribbean countries, not just Trinidad and Tobago, is with the US. Now, we could take positions that are dignified and respectful without going overboard. So, two things. One of the problems is that Trinidad and Tobago is distancing itself from a lot of countries in CARICOM. The Prime Minister said, Trinidad and Tobago first, was a statement that didn't understand that the majority of our exports that are not energy exports are exports to CARICOM countries. Dr. Bob, when you go in the supermarket in St. George's or wherever, what do you see on the shelves? A huge amount of Trinidad and Tobago manufactured.
Bub and biscuit, chubby, you name it, Maggie's noodle soup, the juices. Back then, we had Juicy Cool back in the day.
Exactly. So we, even as you say, Trinidad and Tobago first, it also means that it is CARICOM, right? And so much more. So it comes back to what I think Gary was saying about who is advising the Prime Minister. What is our own position and understanding of these issues? On December 8th was CARICOM Cuba Day, 53rd anniversary, establishment of diplomatic relations between 4 newly independent Caribbean countries, the first 4 in the English-speaking Caribbean: Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Guyana. So in 1972, December 8th, they established diplomatic relations with the United States, with Cuba. In the face of the Cold War, the fact that apart from Mexico, no other country in Latin America and the Caribbean had established diplomatic relations with Cuba. But we took a position on principle. In the height of the battle against apartheid, we were supportive of the liberation movement. Reagan in the United States was president, Thatcher in the UK was prime minister, and we said you could have your positions, but we opposed that. And you remember the calypso by Stalin about burn them, right? When he said, leave Worcester, and so we had a position on principle. We have recognized, all CARICOM member states recognize Palestine as a state that is totally opposed to the United States, yes, position. So we could take positions that are contrary to US foreign policy positions, in time maintaining relations with the United States. You don't have to go overboard with support in that regard. And unfortunately, that is what the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has done. And one, just shifting gears very briefly,
yes.
The seizure of that oil tanker, its forces, raises another question, which I remember raising very early on, months ago, and that is whether the US, part of their strategy, is not a naval and aerial blockade of Venezuela, and therefore trying to strangle, which is something that was done by the United States illegally, because it was ruled illegal by the International Court of Justice of Nicaragua during the first Sandinista government in the late 70s, early 80s. And this may be what they're also trying to do, and therefore the Venezuelan economy, more than just the sanctions that are illegal that I mentioned, in order to create instability in Venezuela, which could lead to social unrest and people wanting to rise up against the government of President Maduro. So that is something that we have to pay attention to as well.
Yes, and we will definitely be watching that space.
Yes. Let me just ask Gary, what if the Russians or the Chinese say they want to have a tanker coming into Venezuela to get Venezuelan oil, and they then decide to have that tanker escorted by 1 or 2 destroyers? What would be that scenario? Military person. But that's a real possibility, right?
And that is how wars start, because of these situations of flexing muscle. Because in this situation, they actually got a federal judge to actually issue a warrant. So even the criminal justice system in the United States has now become part of this, where the judge has claimed that there's a warrant means that there's enough evidence to verify that that tanker was involved in distributing oil to a foreign terrorist organization. Now, that type of evidence or data is mind-boggling, that if it is true, but for them to have a judge issue a warrant, the warrant was the justification for what it is the United States did. If it is they did the same thing for a Russian tanker, and they say, well, no, our judge gave us a warrant to do this. That is where it is. You'll get the escalation. The escalation wouldn't take place with Venezuela. Venezuela have now succumbed to the fact that, listen, the United States are flexing their muscles, and it seems that it could very well become a stranglehold to put pressure into getting the end result.
Gentlemen, it's very fascinating conversation. So, Mr. Griffith, I want to go over to you, sir, for some closing comments. 2026 is expected to be a blockbuster year, really, if based on everything that's happening now in our little area of the Caribbean. You know, in the news they always talk about what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, but it seems as though the theater of war has been planted firmly in our neighborhood.
Yeah, you know, I always love going to Grenada. I remember I went there last year or so, and where I stayed there, I saw a car turned around. I think it was your deputy prime minister. The man is just driving himself. Yeah. And when I look at Venezuela, I said, I like this country, you know. And he's there, no security, nothing. Right now, every junior minister, everybody have about 5 security guards, Prados. They have to open the door for them if they go in Starbucks. Trinidad and Tobago is like, my God, you want to know what we have become. And sometimes also never. I was a commissioner. I had 1 security officer. So the point being is that Trinidad and Tobago have become so everything has become so defensive and protective. Grenada, the unfortunate thing I could tell Grenada is that eventually Grenada is going to have to admit and agree to some degree of support of the United States. But at the same time, I think your prime minister and your government, they are doing the right thing by making sure, okay, we are not making you the enemy, but we are not going to succumb to be seen as an avenue to allow you to do something against another country that may be deemed illegal or as a pertain to a war crime. Trinidad and Tobago I think it is important we follow that same pattern. I think initially, the angle we went at, the whole world, especially CARICOM, said, well, look, you're looking like you're selling out now. You're just doing everything. I think the Prime Minister has stepped back tremendously, even to the point David called recently, I was shocked when she said, we are not going to allow the United States to use Trinidad and Tobago as a launching pad to be involved in any attack towards Venezuela. I was very surprised to hear her make that comment because it could be seen as, you know, how the Trump administration will look like, saying, you're threatening me, and after all that I have done for you. So, but I think she was forced to do that after so many things that she said initially. So it is hope that in the very near future, good sense will prevail. There's enough dialogue, not just between the United States and Venezuela. We can't deal with that. We have to deal with our issues, and that is CARICOM. I don't think there's enough communication. There's not enough dialogue. And if that does not happen, we will continue to be fragmented and we're all going to lose. And at my last point, even with our Prime Minister, she must start embracing persons outside who have a UNC party card. There is no one in the UNC who have the capability to guide her accordingly. Not Gary Griffin, I've retired. So before people say I'm looking for a job, but there are many persons who have that degree of intelligence and knowledge to guide her towards these very rough waters that we intend to pursue and see in 2026.
Mr. Abdullah, over to you, sir, for some closing comments.
Yeah, thanks for this important discussion. And we didn't even get a chance to refer to a very foolish statement by the Homeland Minister in Trinidad and Tobago when he was calling on the United States to revoke visa, green cards in Trinidad and Tobago nationals.
Yeah, that's just
because they were making statements critical of what is going on. I mean, that was horrible. I mean, in the face of one Trinidad and Tobago national actually having his visa revoked, a businessman, right, Gary Aboud, who's involved with Fishermen and Friends of the Sea. So that kind of, what the right word is, kowtowing to another sovereign state, asking that sovereign state to intervene in your internal affairs.
And then the U.S. Embassy, funny enough, they released a statement distancing themselves from what he said. That's the Minister of National Security.
Even, but you know what?
Yes, go ahead, Gary. Quickly.
Even, so that means that the 2 dumbest statements made by politicians in Trinidad have been by 2 Alexanders. Philip Alexander with the in Venezuela, and then Roger Alexander. So it was an Alexander forecast. If you had put it what Tracy there and one there.
Well, isn't there a Parang song, Alexander? Isn't there okay, Mr. Abdullah, yes, sir. Yes.
So the U.S. Embassy did make a statement, but they also said that people need to be aware that statements that they made, including on social media, can be used to deny you.
Yes, they also said that.
Visa.
Yes,
so there was a threat implied in that, right? As you know, the the issue is one of great concern, and I hope that we could come back to talk about CARICOM, because CARICOM is badly fractured at the moment, and the situation is developing, in my view, of the reestablishment of a Caribbean Democratic Union, which was started in the 80s by Jamaica, Tom Adams of Barbados and others, as a pushback against the Grenadian Revolution, and then subsequent to October 19th to reinforce the U.S. position in the region. And you're seeing statements coming out of, including the said Philip Alexander, where he was saying that yellow is the code is going to sweep the whole is St. Vincent now, and they go to St. Lucia. Of course, St. Lucia didn't go that way, and Barbados, Antigua, Dominica. So we have to understand what is also going on in the context of this national security strategy, which said that they're going to work with governments, political parties, and movements, and so on, broad principles and strategy. So there are a lot of things happening in the region, and that is why we have to stand up and say we do not want war. And I want to say that the Venezuelan government and the armed forces have been very patient. I mean, they've had, according to international media reports, flybys by planes in their airspace and all kinds of other provocative actions. But they have, which could have provoked somebody to say, let us do something, which would have then given the U.S. the pretext to say, okay,
the pretext to say, hey, we have been attacked. It's the same thing as the Gulf of Tonkin in Vietnam. Same.
That's right. Yeah. So very patient and disciplined. And I just hope that patience and discipline holds, and that, eventually Mr. Trump will say, okay, we're going to move that aircraft carrier out of the Caribbean and let us find a way of negotiating. It could be a simple negotiation where more repatriated to Venezuela out of the United States. It could be the reestablishment of collaboration between the DA and the Venezuelans with respect to whatever drug trafficking, because the majority of drugs coming out, cocaine coming out of Latin America doesn't pass through Venezuela. Only 5% of it does. But there could be ongoing collaboration. Only Venezuela has been threatened. The Colombians also feel threatened and are strengthening their military defensive capabilities now, in the possibility that the U.S. also attacks Colombia. So if the whole region gets destabilized by a war, it's going to spill over to all of us. Mass emigration out of Venezuela illegally, they're going to swamp us. Economically, investment, all kinds of things are going to get messed up if there's destabilization in this region. And we can't have that.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. And as we say here, we'll continue to watch the space and see what unfolds in the coming weeks and, of course, next year as well. Thank you so much. And happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you gentlemen and your families as well.
Same to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much for having us, and many happy returns. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, we just had a conversation there with two nationals of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, both Mr. Gary Griffith and Mr. David Abdullah, giving us some updates with respect to the installation of the radar equipment there at the A&R Robinson International Airport, as well as continued ongoing U.S. military activities in the Southern Caribbean that has everyone really glued to their screens with respect to what's happening and the geopolitical implications, because while that might be a war against Venezuela, certainly it will affect the rest of us in the Caribbean, including in Grenada. So checking out the Bubb Report social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching. We are all